Hello, college students. Many of you are starting classes right now, so it's a good time to go over what the best things to do during your first week of classes are to be successful for the rest of the semester. So let's talk about your plan. If you haven't done it already, you need to check on your current schedule. So, check schedule is a really important thing. Even if you've checked it somewhat recently, college schedules often shift, change, make adjustments, and you're not always sure exactly what those things are unless you double check them. So as you're checking your schedule, make sure that the classes that you think are supposed to be there are there. Make sure you know what days of the week things should be and that they're where they're supposed to be. Also, colleges often abbreviate days of the week in strange ways. So at my school, for instance, if you see something that says TR, that's a Tuesday and Thursday class. So it meets twice a week. If it was only a T, then it would meet on Tuesdays. See how that can be confusing. So make sure you know what days it is. Make sure you know what room things are in. Check the days, check the time, check the room, because that'll also tell you something important about where you're going to go, and rooms change the most frequently. If a class is supposed to be online, make sure you have checked in for what kind of online setting it's supposed to be. Furthermore, you should check your learning management system. So check online for whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. At my institution, we're still using Blackboard, and so you want to check your Blackboard. Make sure that the courses come up. They might not come up before the first day of classes, so if you check early, you may not be sure, but the first day, they definitely should be there. If you have a class that's supposed to be online and it's not listed, you need to communicate with somebody. If you have a class that's in person and not listed, it may not have an online site, so knowing that is important. But it's still worth asking when you get there if it's supposed to, so you know if the problem is on your end or on our end. And that's a key thing to check in on. So check your actual schedule, make sure you know where you're going. Check your online system, make sure your classes match up there. Things don't always happen automatically, so double checking is important. All right, so if you definitely know where you're heading, and you definitely have your sort of online stuff sorted, the last thing to do before everything starts is have some materials ready with a place to put important information. Where will important info go? And this is key in general and for each class. So you have to think about if you have a planner perhaps or a calendar, a place where you can put all of the important info together for all your classes. That's a good starting point. If each class is going to have its own important info, like its own folder or its own notebook, be sure you have those ahead of time so that you are ready to input that information immediately for each class. So have at least a partial plan. Obviously, things might change a little bit when you find out more about what type of classes you have and how they're going to work. But for sure, check in on yourself and where you're going to put things. If it's something physical, be sure you know what bag it's going to go in and how it's going to travel with you. If it's something digital, be sure you know how you're going to access it. I far prefer digital because I like my stuff in the cloud. These are the things that are going to help you out. Okay. So this is the pre-first week of class stuff, is making sure right before you got to go. But now let's talk a little bit more about what to actually do when you get to the first day of those classes. So, first day of class. Obviously, make sure you show up to them and do your best to show up on time, because when you miss the beginning of the first days of classes, we understand that sometimes people get lost, but it is so much harder to catch everybody. So do your best, plan a little bit ahead if you need to, be that person. It's understandable if something goes wrong, but at least if you give it a try, you're less likely. Okay, obviously, one of the key things to get in every single class should be a syllabus. The syllabus is your way of knowing what's actually going to happen in this class and how things are going to go. Now, if you don't have a precision syllabus from your instructor, there are some things to keep track of. And I suggest not just having the syllabus itself, but transferring the important information I'm about to mention into that important information place that I talked about a moment ago. So that is going to be key. So here's what's important. You want to know your instructor's name and contact. You want to know what their email is, how they prefer to be contacted, what the best way to contact them is. That should be on the syllabus. If not, or you don't get a syllabus, make sure you at least have that. What is the way to contact your instructor? And knowing who they are can help, because then if you're not sure about contact or if something goes wrong, you can ask somebody else and one of us can help you out. You need to know what materials and books you need. So do you need to buy something? Now, a lot of times I say you should try to ask this ahead of time if possible. Communicate with instructors before class, but it's not always possible. But that day one is the day to figure it out. If you need a book for this class, do you need to purchase it? Can you get your hands on it? What else might you need? Does it seem like the kind of class that's going to have a lot of notes? Are you going to need a notebook? Are you going to need some way of dealing with that? Does your instructor have anything specific they suggest? If it's some kind of art or other technical class like a lab, do you need any other materials? So knowing what those are and how to get them is going to be your next most important thing. Then check out any major due dates and projects. And it seems maybe silly to get ahead of this at this level, but even if you're not going to do something totally useful with it yet, just getting in your head the fact that you're going to have X large paper for this class, X large project for this one, and get a sense of when they're going to be due will help you in the long run. Also, find out if you have any consistent due dates. Things like, in this class, such and such is due every Monday or every Friday. Knowing that is going to be important information that is going to help you move forward. So having that is going to be key. So if you get nothing else out of the syllabus to start, instructor's name and contact, materials and books, and basic assignments, due dates, and major projects, you can get a sense of it. The best thing to do after that would actually be to sit down with all of those and try to get it in some kind of generalized calendar for the semester, whether you use a calendar specifically or you just create a one-page sheet of here's the next 14 weeks and here's where my major things are due so you can actually visualize it is worthwhile. So speaking of, the next thing to deal with after this is if we've done the first week and the first day, I think what's important now is what happens immediately after. So after classes, after your first classes, in fact, here's where you got to start making a plan. And I suggest doing it, in fact, a little bit ahead of time so that it's in your schedule or at least in your sort of mind frame for what you're doing, is plan 1 to 2 hours for each class. And literally plan it into your day. So if you have a math class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're starting classes this semester on Wednesday, so you're going to have class on Wednesday morning and Friday morning, then later on both of those days, have an hour planned, maybe even an hour and a half or two, where you have nothing else happening and you're going to sit down and look at math stuff. Right now, it doesn't matter what math stuff is. It's not like you need a particular assignment, because right now you just want to get into your head the basics. And so the basics really are double checking the materials. So reread, if you can, that syllabus and look for those important details at least one more time. Note anything you didn't note before. Maybe even go through it with a pencil and make actual notes alongside it. Or write down those notes in that where will important information go part. So be sure to do that. You also want to then start to make a consistent plan. Now that you have this, you're going to be able to see where you're going to need to do work. So determine which classes have reading, which classes have online assignments, which classes are going to require you to do certain things. So make a plan, and key thing is wherever you're keeping track of your life, put it in a calendar. Even if it's just a once a week or I'm keeping track of it for a moment, you'll get to it. It will be important. And then start the material. Start reading, start figuring it out, because you're going to want to know quickly what your issues are going to be or how you're going to want to deal with it. Even if it seems tough, at least this way you've scanned over something. You've started thinking about it. You've started getting in your head. And if you start to realize it's difficult, what you might need to do is adjust your plan to say, okay, I need to break this into small pieces, or I need to make sure that I'm in a quiet place when I do this reading, but this assignment I'll be able to do elsewhere. So all of this is how you get through your first week of classes. Make sure you know where you're going, what you're doing. Make sure your online stuff is set up. Make sure you get the information you need and you put it somewhere you won't lose. Then plan a little bit of time after each class to make sure that you look over the syllabus, know what's coming, and can start some of the work. I expect things my whole second class, and I know a lot of instructors do too. So hopefully this is helpful, no matter where you're at and what you're doing, and that you can set yourself a plan for the semester.